In 2020, Saratoga Springs became overtaken with a second pandemic. Local legend Jeff Brisbin released his third and most highly acclaimed album, Blame It On Love, and the city was swept away with a feverish dose of Brisbin mania. On the Saratoga music scene since the early 2000s, Brisbin routinely plays over 200 gigs a year on his never-ending tour. Though technically, he began his musical career playing at local watering hole Bailey's Cafe open mics, his passion for playing and creating music started at a much earlier age. He started thinking up songs when he was only 5 or 6 years old. Jeff got his first guitar at 12 years old and began formally writing his own music almost immediately. The Beatles, especially Paul McCartney, are a huge influence for Brisbin. He's often said how his life was changed overnight that crisp February evening in 1964 when the Beatles played The Ed Sullivan Show. Like McCartney, Jeff's early songs were often about love, a theme he's kept close to his heart throughout his life. This former male model was often found strumming away in the comfort of his own home, much to the delight and fascination of his children. But eventually, Brisbin felt it was time to share his melodies with the rest of the world.
So growing up with Jeff Brisbin as my dad, there was always music around the house. He was always playing his guitar. He didn't start playing out until after I was in college. But I remember when I was young, I was probably 3 or 4, he was playing the opening to Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles, which goes, "To lead a better life, I need my love to be here." And I thought he was singing to me because he would often change the lyrics to songs to include us kids. And so I said, "I'm right here, Daddy." And I must have gotten a really great reaction from it. He must have loved it because that kind of became our tradition, and still is if he plays it around me, that I have to say that.
I have a ton of memories about my dad and his music. One of the coolest that I have from a personal sense is that he and I played together on the stage at Cafe Lena in 2004 at the Local-thon. I don't even know, that may have been his first or second time up there himself. I had played at open mics through high school, but to be on that stage with my dad and to play songs with my dad, Beatles songs with my dad, was crazy. And then we played some original stuff. So that's an irreplaceable memory.
All of my earliest memories of music go back to that guy. I remember the first time he pulled out his acoustic guitar and started playing the theme song to the old Batman TV show. Blew my mind! I still remember that. That's that thing! And he's making that thing do that thing that the TV usually does. Also, I remember climbing on top of his old Ovation guitar case. I remember what that smelled like on the inside. I remember using his pitch pipe little tuner. Remembering how it made my lips buzz a little bit. I like that.
So I remember sitting in his guitar case when I was really little. It had orange felt. I like to sit in it. He did not like me sitting in it, but I really enjoyed it.
Did Zanny talked about sitting in his guitar case when she was little? I think all of us sat in his guitar case when we were little. I think it was a thing. I would not be shocked if random children and toddlers were placed in his guitar case at some point. That would not shock me.
Started writing songs when I was a teenager, and then it progressed. And then, I don't know, later on in life, it was crazy. Life takes its twist, but I think 20 years ago, I moved back to Saratoga. I was living in the Berkshires, and I saw Rick Bolton playing what is now Harvey's. And he takes a break, and I said, "Dude, I really like what you did." I didn't even know they did this, in little restaurants and stuff like that. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it for 20 years around town." I said, "Wow." And so he said, "Look, I'm doing an open mic." I told him I play guitar a little bit. So I'm doing an open mic starting tomorrow at Bailey's. And so that's when I really got into it.
I remember going to gigs when I was little with Josh, and we would just sit at Bailey's and watch Dad and think he was so cool. And he would get us these little make your own s'mores things for the table. I don't know, it was really fun.
Jeff gigged for a few years before deciding to finally put together an album. Uncharted Waters was released in 2009 and contains a blend of upbeat jams and sentimental tunes. Though probably the lesser known of his 3 albums, Uncharted Waters is an essential part of the Jeff Brisbin anthology. Tracks like Golden and Sometimes remain classics for Brisbane's biggest fans.
My favorite album would have to be Uncharted Waters because I remember being around a lot for the writing process for a lot of those songs, particularly The Other Side of My Life. I remember he asked me about a word choice, and he went with my choice. And so, still waiting on that writing credit.
Okay, so when you're talking about Uncharted Waters, for me, I just remember him writing all those songs in that little house, and him, he had been gigging for years and was really enjoying it, and had been a songwriter, obviously, forever. I remember my dad writing music forever. And but this was different, and these songs had a little bit more of a purpose. And I'm looking through my Apple Music here, where you can find Jeff Brisbin music. And for me, my favorite song, when I'm looking at these songs and I'm thinking about my memories of him playing it for me for the first time, I was among the handful of first people to hear these songs, which is pretty cool. Golden. Golden is not a song that I heard him write. It's an old song, but he had written it, I think, probably before I was born. But so that was kind of cool to hear him interpret that years later, and for other people to appreciate it in a totally different way, and for me to appreciate it in a totally different way. So for Uncharted Waters, my favorite song is Golden.
One song from each album? I gotta do 2. I gotta do 2 for each. Uncharted Waters, Golden, obviously, and Different Things. I think that album especially, I liked it when he had some swagger. Yeah.
Yeah, I like So Many. So Many is a good one. So Many songs. Okay.
It wouldn't be until 2017 when Brisbin would release his second album, Foreverly. During his hiatus from the studio, Brisbin spent time honing his craft and building a substantial following. He gained traction in the local gigging scene for the astounding number of songs he can cover from a variety of musical genres. Got a request? There's a good chance Jeff Brisbin knows it. His lineup includes the classics: The Beatles, Springsteen, Neil Young, Johnny Cash, James Taylor, mixed with some surprising modern hits from the likes of Adele, even Lady Gaga. Whatever the song, Jeff makes it his own, and the people love him for it.
I remember hearing a while ago, like 1,000 songs, right?
I do almost 1,200 songs.
That is insane.
That's my repertoire.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had some people testing me last night. I hit everyone.
Favorite cover? Every Night by Paul McCartney. I've heard him do it so many times that I think his version is probably the best I've ever heard. Is the best I've ever heard.
My favorite Jeff Brisbin cover song, hands down, I always request it, is Sundown by Gordon Lightfoot. He does it better than Gordon himself. He adds a little more rhythm, a little more rock and roll to it. It's the best. Request it if you ever see him out at Henry's. The other thing about Jeff Brisbin doing cover songs, which he does many, is that he always makes them his own. They always sound like a Jeff Brisbin song. They don't sound like Jeff Brisbin trying to sound like whoever the original recording artist was. And a fun memory I have, almost 10 years ago, I got to see him play at Bailey's Cafe in Saratoga. He did, with a friend of his, a Bruce Springsteen tribute concert. And it was really cool because Jeff was playing Bruce Springsteen songs, but he was playing them in the Jeff Brisbin style. And the friend that he was doing the show with was doing Bruce Springsteen covers a little more on the nose, and it was this really fun kind of juxtaposition of their two different styles. It was really fun. It's a great memory I have.
Dad covers a lot of really good songs. He has a lot of good versions of, it's hard to pick. I guess my favorite cover song he does would be Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. He does a really good intro for that. I was very impressed when I first heard it.
The man can cover any song. It's very, very true. My favorite cover of his, honestly, the songs I enjoy the most that he does are the fun ones where the whole crowd gets into it. I recall a performance probably around 2011, 2012 that I was lucky to be at with some family, and it was Mama's Got a Squeeze Box, and people were banging on the tables, and the whole place, the entire restaurant, the entire bar area, everybody watching, everybody there was pulled into that song, and it was an awesome time. Foreverly was released to an eager audience and went gold in a matter of weeks. An unsurprising feat with an artist like Brisbin and with a producer like Dave Maswick. Foreverly is a masterwork of 10 songs, the title track being a polished ballad written for his lifelong friend who was diagnosed with cancer. How does one face their own mortality? Foreverly asks this and answers this question with smooth acoustic guitar and the sweet dancing trills of a chromatic harmonica. Jeff wears his heart on his sleeve in real life, and he isn't afraid to show the emotional side of himself in his music. With his second album, Brisbin set the bar for the kind of quality that could come out of a local singer-songwriter.
When I started the project, making the album Foreverly with Dave Maswick, the producer, I said, Dave, I don't know if you're going to work with me. I don't even know how many notes there are. He goes, don't worry, I do. And so, I go off from there. I don't really know anything about music. I barely know the names to most of the chords. I need a spark, and when I get that spark, it's like, that's when I feel I have to write a song. Now is the time. And so...
How long will the wind blow? As long as there's sky. How can I give you what no money can buy? How long will I love you? That's easy for me, foreverly. Foreverly.
Two songs from Foreverly. Same Old Moon and I Will Wait for You. Those are the two classic JCB songs for me on that one. Anyway,
Foreverly, my favorite song is Same Old Moon because he wrote that for me.
Favorite song on Foreverly? That is a really hard question. I enjoyed a lot of these songs. This is when he and Dave Maswick had hooked up, I believe, for the first time. And just sonically, this is a fun album to listen to for me. Having grown up with just listening to my dad, and then obviously Uncharted Waters was Uncharted Waters. But Foreverly, I feel like, is really where he was really confident, and it came through. So Foreverly's tough because there's so many good songs on there, but I'm going to go with Just Like Tequila because it's a party song, and it's a song that I feel like he probably wrote after playing out a couple times, and it's a simple song, but it's fun as hell to listen to, and it's fun to play. So for me, it's Just Like Tequila. No pandemic could ever slow Brisbin down. In 2020, during the worldwide shutdown caused by COVID-19, he released his third album, Blame It on Love, to rave reviews. This highly lauded collection of 10 songs, produced again by Maswick, is the one Brisbin is most proud of. And not content with completing and releasing this latest composition in the midst of quarantine, He also brought a heaping helping of happiness to local living rooms by giving concerts for his eager fans on Facebook Live. And now that the world is slowly returning to normal, he continues to play venues all over the capital region, several nights a week. Henry's in Ballston Spa is his home every Friday, and his schedule is peppered with private parties and weddings. While he's out there living his dream, his fans are eagerly awaiting word of his next project.
My favorite album? Okay, great question. It's actually an easy answer for me. Out of the three, it's Blame It on Love. It's Blame It on Love. I think lyrically it's his strongest album, and the production is amazing. You know, obviously Dave Maswick killed it. All the musicians were amazing. But I think overall, of all three of his released albums, this is the album that for me speaks to who I feel my father really is. This is his heart, and I think he crushed it.
Album? Blame It on Love. The guy gets better as time goes by. The more often he does this, the more confident he gets, and you can hear it each time.
For Blame It on Love, my favorite song would be The One for Me, because he used to sing that one to me when I was going to sleep.
Blame It on Love. I'm going to say title track, and Ain't It That Way. That album especially, I liked it when he got into the soul R&B kind of songs. Really, the whole band hit their stride, and it all came together. Yeah, those are my favorites.
Favorite song on Blame It on Love is an easy one for me also, and I think it's a cop-out because I had kind of called out to a older song on a previous album, but The Only Feeling Felt is a song that my dad wrote eons ago, and it's my favorite song. I've heard him play it just acoustically for much of my life, I feel like. And again, the production on this is awesome. It's my favorite song to really just turn up and enjoy and appreciate.
So some of my siblings inherited my dad's musical talents. I like to think I did. I probably didn't as much as the others, but one thing I did inherit from him is this community-mindedness. You know, I like to say that Jeff Brisbin is the mayor of Saratoga. You can't walk down the street without people stopping him to talk to him because they're his friends. And I've kind of embraced that myself in Chicago and my community. And so I like to think that I'm kind of bringing my dad with me along in my community work in Chicago.
I remember we couldn't go anywhere in Saratoga without Dad running into somebody that he knew. And now it's basically the same, except they all know him from like the music world, which is great.
Yes, I am one of the masterminds behind the Jeff Brisbin memes that went viral in 2020. I will take credit for that.
Somebody says my oh my. Look at that shiny car. Must belong to some superstar. Somebody says which way to go. I see it's not my.
Allie said that about the memes. She started it.
There they go down the street. Tough times.
My favorite Jeff Brisbin song. Just one? I Will Wait For You. It's a classic. It's one of the ones that gets caught in my head when I hear him play it. Days later, it'll come back. And it's one of the songs that just propels itself forward using its own momentum. It's a classic.
My favorite Jeff Brisbin song would have to be My Friend. It's a song he wrote when he was a teenager. It didn't make it onto his new album or the one before, even though I requested it because his producer said that it wasn't going anywhere musically, but I would have to disagree.
I think my favorite Jeff Brisbin song wouldn't be a song that's on an album. It would probably be a song that he would sing to us when we were kids. And that's our song. You don't get to hear that.
I can't tell you what music does. It is, it's, I don't know, it's just, it takes me someplace else. You know, it takes me a few songs to get in.
Yeah.
and I'm going.
He can play a song like without looking up the chords. Like he can figure it out. Like one time I was in high school or something, and I was like, "Do you know how to play this song?" And he was like, "I don't know." And then he just picked up his guitar and he like figured it out. Like he figured out the tune. I don't know if it was the correct chords. But...
You mentioned Jeff Brisbin memorabilia, and there's definitely a lot of it out there. But my most prized possession is certainly this Ovation guitar, which Jeff actually, my dad wrote a ton of songs on. Classics that would eventually be recorded on some of those albums that we're talking about today. So this is, I want to say he got this around 1973, 74, and gave it to me about 22 years later, and I cherished it ever since. Like, it smells good. It still smells good.
He's not just a musician, he's an entrepreneur. What he has done with his music career, he's done all on his own. He makes his own marketing materials, he goes out and books his own gigs. Obviously, he writes his own music, and he's kind of his own manager, roadie, PR agent. He's everything. And I think it's so inspiring to see that and to see him continuing to push and to grind and to learn new things. You know, even in his retirement, it's inspiring, and I'm so proud of him.
I remember early on him showing me that you can have a deep connection to music. I remember being 4 years old and John Lennon being shot down, and he had a very strong reaction to that, and that made a big impression on me, that music can have that kind of an effect on someone, you know, everyone. And that's what his music does for other people too.
Jeff Brisbin, great guy.
When you meet and you fall in love, say your vows to heaven above. You never think it could ever fall apart. So you live and you give it your best. Like so many, we failed the test. You never think you'd break each other's heart. But all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put us back together again. Try as we did, fail we did too. It was never enough.